All right, we'll go ahead and begin here. Thank you for coming to our public meeting on the FY25 Safe Streets and Roads for All update. We're going to cover a few projects and give you some details on those. First, to get us started, I've got a couple points on logistics. So we have about a 15-minute presentation, which will give us about 75 minutes for comments and questions. The meeting is currently being recorded, and we'll be posting a video of this online after the meeting. There's a link, mocoparks.org/SS4A, which you can find those at. And for a few kind of just logistics things, we have a Q&A box where you can enter questions or comments. And after the presentation, there'll be an opportunity to speak. If you would like to speak, you can use the raise hand function, and one of our hosts will unmute you. If you could please keep your initial comments or questions to about a minute to start, that'll give us a chance to make sure everyone can participate. Again, we've got about 75 minutes to answer comments and questions. So if you have more than one question, there should be plenty of opportunities for that. So to give you a little bit of background on the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program and the work that we're doing here. So we won $7.5 million through the Federal Highway Administration and U.S. Department of Transportation through the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program. This program we applied to with a with a project that we've called Safe and Equitable Access to Parks. Focuses on locations with a history of crashes or along our high injury network. One thing we found when kind of researching this is that 14 of the 65 pedestrian and bicyclist fatalities in Montgomery County occurred within a third of a mile from just 3 parks. And those are the 3 parks we're focusing on this. So Sligo Creek, Matthew Henson, and Wheaton Regional. Once we received the grant, last May, we held a public meeting, kind of an open workshop to show some of the projects we had included in the grant to get some feedback on those. And that was held at the Wheaton Library and Rec Center. You can see some photos here. But diving a little bit more into what this project is about and kind of what's driving it, and a big part of it is Vision Zero. So Vision Zero is the goal to reduce the number of traffic deaths in Montgomery County to 0. So this is done by eliminating, pedestrian, cyclist, and driver injuries as well as fatality, introducing improvements to reduce and eliminate the chances for conflict, and then introducing traffic calming to reduce vehicular speeds, which can reduce conflict frequency and severity, essentially less crashes, less severe injuries. And then we've got some images here on the bottom left. You can see a cover of the 2030 Vision Zero Action Plan. To the right of that, you can see how the chance of survival when a pedestrian is struck increases or decreases as speeds increase. So 95% chance of survival at 20 miles an hour versus only 15 at 40 miles an hour. And finally, in the bottom right, there's a graphic showing driver cone of vision at different speeds. And you can see as the faster you start driving, the smaller that cone of vision gets. So Montgomery County, in their Vision Zero Action Plan, looked at the existing kind of high injury network and used that to create kind of a top 10 for state maintained priority roads and a top 10 for county maintained priority roads. And I've got highlighted here, let me turn something on to help you guys see. So you can see here kind of highlighted Georgia Ave from University to Forest Glen, University, Georgia again, Connecticut, and Randolph. Several of the projects that we have here are kind of located right along those high injury networks or offer parallel routes to those high injury networks. So this is a map showing those high injury networks that I just was talking about in red here. So you can see University Boulevard from Georgia all the way to Four Corners is one. Most of Georgia is one. Parts of Connecticut and Veers are as well. And then in orange, you can see the projects that we'll be discussing tonight. So this is Arcola Ave, Sligo and University, Georgia and Evans Parkway. This is Sligo and Godwin, as well as 2 projects up near Matthew Henson Trail. We'll be talking about those tonight. And then the lines in purple, Those are showing future projects. We've kind of phased these safe streets and roads for all projects so that we can make sure to kind of focus on them and move them through. So again, I just kind of talked a little bit about the FY25 projects, but all of these projects are currently either in design or permitting, with the goal of getting to construction in the late fall of this year or early next year. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my coworker, Andrew Sy, who's a project manager and engineer, to talk about Matthew Henson Trail, Connecticut Avenue.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm an engineer, as Kyle mentioned, with Montgomery County Parks, and I'm going to be going over a couple of the projects in a little bit more detail. The very first project we're going to be discussing tonight is Matthew Henson Trail at Connecticut Avenue. This location is very close to the Aspen Hill Shopping Center. We're just a little bit south of that location. We're along Connecticut Avenue, and this is the overpass bridge over the Matthew Henson Trail and Matthew Henson State Park. So this project here has a couple of elements. The first one is we are going to be providing additional underpass lighting. Right now, there is no lighting underneath that overpass of Connecticut Avenue. So we're going to be providing additional lights, freestanding lights. We are going to be removing some extraneous legacy pavement from the old on-ramps onto Connecticut Avenue. And I do have a photo on the next slide that kind of illustrates that a little bit, but exactly right here. Thanks, Kyle. You can see that there are some old slip lanes that were never removed. So we're going to remove them. And the benefit of doing that is not only the environmental benefits, but we can actually widen the existing sidewalks and provide additional grass buffer between the road and the sidewalks. So right now, Connecticut Avenue is a very high-speed road, like many of the state highways. So by trying to provide a little bit more buffer, a wider sidewalk, additional separation, it makes that walk along that segment of the road a little bit less stressful, a little bit safer, a little bit more safe. Can you go next slide, please? These are photos of the existing trail condition underneath the Connecticut Avenue Bridge. We're going to be looking at opportunities to improve the trail asphalt as well as the existing shoulder areas as well as part of this project, in addition to the lights and additional wayfinding signage so that it's easier for people on the trail to find which way they want to go after they travel under that overpass. Next slide, please. Next location I want to highlight is Georgia Avenue, Maryland 97 at Hewitt Avenue. This location is about half a mile northeast of the Connecticut Avenue location. If you're familiar with this site, it has been the site of several crashes, some injuries. Georgia Avenue is it's a high-speed road. There's a lot of crashes, so this is a great project, and we're excited about this one particularly because we can improve the safety here. So the Matthew Henson Trail does cross this intersection, as you can see from the south to the northeast there. We're going to be narrowing the drive lanes along Georgia Avenue down to 11 feet. Right now, they range from about 12 feet to 13 feet. So as Kyle highlighted on his Vision Zero slide, when we narrow the travel lanes of a road, it slows vehicles down, and that provides additional safety aspects. But similar to the Connecticut Avenue location, by narrowing the drive lanes, we can actually widen the existing sidewalks and also provide additional grass buffer between the drive lanes and the sidewalks. So walking on the sidewalk becomes a much more pleasant, much more safe experience. At the intersection itself, we're going to be providing median refuges. Those are sort of like the raised curb concrete islands that you may have seen throughout the county now at more and more locations. That provides more of a barrier and provides protection. It is a very long crossing. It is a wide crossing. Narrowing the drive lanes is going to help with the crossing, the time it takes to cross a little bit. But by providing those enhanced median refuges, we can actually provide protection, for people who are traversing that really long distance. We're also going to be looking at removing extraneous asphalt and impervious as well, which has a secondary benefit of the enhanced environmental benefits, reduced stormwater runoff. And we're going to be there are two bus stops here, as we'll highlight on the next slide showing the photos. Full access to the bus stops will be maintained, and we'll be also enhancing the sidewalk connection from Hewitt Avenue to the Matthew Henson Trail. The next slides do show the existing conditions at the intersection, so you can get an idea of what it looks like. If you've been out here, we've been out here, we've observed it. Many people cross this road. Many people use the bus stations. It's a ton of pedestrians cross here every day. So it's an opportunity here to enhance the safety by providing those median refuges by trying to slow cars down here a little bit.
Yeah,
And
and
it's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add that this is one of the locations where there is a history of severe and fatal bike and ped accidents. So this is a very important one for us.
Yeah, exactly. And it also will enhance the connection of the Matthew Henson Trail from one side to the other. So that's great as well. This photo here is the perspective of standing at the intersection along Hewitt looking south. So to your right there, that's looking westbound. To your left, that's looking eastbound, or I should say south, actually. Georgia Avenue's north-south road. Next slide, please. This is now looking southbound. So you can kind of visualize that even right here, you can see sort of the width of the travel lanes, the speeds that cars are able to kind of maintain through this area. So by providing that traffic calming element, by slowing the cars down and providing a little bit of that protected refuge in the middle of the intersection, we think it's going to be a greatly improved, safer intersection. Next slide, please. The next batch of projects cover several different locations close to Wheaton Regional Park. We have kind of lumped them into one sort of overall project area. So I'm going to cover each one individually, but it's the Arcola Avenue traffic calming and crossing safety improvement project. In addition to that, we are proposing new sidewalks along Nairn Road and Orbaugh Avenue, connecting Arcola Avenue to Wheaton Regional Park. And in the next few slides, I'll show exactly what that looks like. I should point out that and this is typical of all our projects, is that all improvements in construction will be located either within MCDOT, which is county, or MNC PPC, which is Montgomery Parks right of way. In the event that an individual segment or a particular project element might require access or a temporary impact to private property, we will reach out to that individual homeowner separately and directly. Next slide, please. So we're going to start on the more of the western side of Arcola Avenue. This is the intersection of Arcola Avenue and Nairn Road. I'm going to hopefully use my vanishing pen here to kind of show you guys. That's, if you can see that up there, that is the existing sort of trailhead into Wheaton Regional Park at the intersection of Hermitage and Nairn Road. We're going to be proposing a 5-foot sidewalk on the west side of Nairn Road from the intersection of Arcola Avenue, going north to connect to that existing trailhead. Currently, there is no existing sidewalk on Nairn Road. It's a 26 foot wide residential roadway. To fit that sidewalk in there and minimize impacts to the existing utilities along that road, which include power poles, storm drains, and other utilities, we're proposing to narrow Nairn Road to 22 feet. Now, the potential downside of that road narrowing is that with the narrow road, we would probably have to impose a parking restriction on one side of the road, in this case, most likely the eastern side. So that is the potential trade-off of having a sidewalk located within that footprint here. And then we also are going to be improving the intersection at Arcola Avenue and Nairn Road, and this is a little zoom in. So I'll sort of point out some of the features here. This is a protected median concrete refuge. So what it allows us to do is right now, Arcola, we receive numerous complaints from residents that cars travel very quickly on Arcola. By installing this type of refuge here, it provides an horizontal deflection. So a car has to slightly turn to avoid hitting that median refuge. And then we're narrowing the width of the lanes here also down to 11 feet. So it all serves to sort of slow cars down. And then it slows cars down as they approach the intersection, and it slows cars down as they may be approaching a bicyclist or a walker trying to cross the roadway. So that's one of our sort of traffic calming goals.
Yeah, and I'll also just add to this one that you can see on the west leg of the intersection, there was an existing median refuge island, but essentially, if you were walking up Nairn, you would have to walk westbound to cross and then head back eastbound. So this is adding the protected medians on both sides of the intersection, which will help to greatly improve kind of accessibility.
Yeah. And in addition to the accessibility, kind of in that vein, all the improvements that we're doing are going to include ADA accessible concrete ramps. We're going to try to make everything as ADA accessible as we can, just to sort of improve access to our parks and access along public right of way as much as we can. Next slide, please. Now we're going to go a little bit east to the intersection of Arcola Avenue and Orbaugh Avenue. Orbaugh Avenue is one of the entrances into Wheaton Regional Park. You can kind of see it up here as it goes north into the Rubini Sportsplex area where all the softball fields are and the ice rink is. We're also proposing in this case, we're calling it a shared use path. It's going to be wider, 8 foot. We're going to try to maintain an 8-foot width as much as we can. And 8 foot is typically the minimum width standard that we use for our shared use path. Because Orbaugh is a wider street, we can actually still maintain parking on both sides. We're not significantly going to be narrowing the width of Orbaugh Avenue, though at the intersection of Arcola and Orbaugh, we are proposing the curb bump outs to help slow speeds a little bit. Similar improvements as Narren Road here, but a protected median refuge, which results in that horizontal deflection to help slow cars down, as well as ADA accessible ramps and sidewalks. Similar to Nairn, I do want to point out on the left here, you can see that there is an existing crossing. The existing crossing being sort of shifted a little bit further from the intersection is a little problematic, we found, because users tend to want to cross at the shortest distance possible. So instead of traveling down to use the existing crossing here, they tend to just wait and then try to shoot the gap and cross the road, resulting in a less safe condition. So we're going to be moving that crossing up to the intersection and providing the refuge, which we think will greatly enhance the safety of that intersection there.
Yeah, and I'll just add to this one that the Orbaugh south of Arcola is the main connection between Sligo Creek Trail up to Wheaton Regional Park. So getting this shared use path into the park and connecting to our other trails really helps to kind of improve that bike connectivity.
This is a photo that is at the intersection of Arcola and Orbaugh. It's looking to the west, so you can see that existing crossing that's over there that we're going to be shifting closer to the intersection. Next slide, please. This is Orbaugh Avenue looking north toward Wheaton Regional Park. So the sidewalk is going to be on this side of the road, which is the west side of the roadway. One of the reasons we wanted to locate it on the west side here, we studied both sides for both Nairn and Orbaugh. At Orbaugh, the advantage of a sidewalk connection on the west side is it allows the direct connection to the future action sports complex that's going to be built in the next couple of fiscal years up where the laser pointer is now. That's going to be a skate park. It's going to have various amenities. I know that Matt Weir is the project manager on that one, so we'll let him have a future community meeting and public outreach process for that one. But that's an exciting project, and we can enhance connections to that one right now with this project. Speaking of trail connections, as Kyle was just mentioning, we're going to go now a little bit east of Orbaugh Avenue. We are going to be installing a raised crosswalk at an existing sort of, and it's not an entranceway, but sort of just an access into Wheaton Regional Park. And it's going to allow us to connect to the future Sligo Creek Trail connector, which is shown in orange. That's a future project that's probably going to be constructed in 2029 to 2030. It is going to connect to the current terminus of the Sligo Creek Trail near Cold Terrace, and it's then going to run behind Cold Terrace through parkland up to Arcola. We're going to cross Arcola, and then that allows a future direct connection between the Sligo Creek Trail and Wheaton Regional Park to access all the great stuff that we have going on in Wheaton Regional Park in the next few years as well. The green hatching you see is the traffic calming element of removing impervious pavement, reducing, narrowing the drive lanes, slowing vehicle speeds down. We are proposing to do that not only in the vicinity of the new crosswalk, but all the way east to the intersection of Arcola Avenue and Kemp Mill Road. And though it's not shown, we are looking at kind of improving that little crosswalk you can see there at Arcola Avenue and Camp Mill Road, perhaps a raised crosswalk or a similar feature to kind of improve the safety of that one as well. Next slide, please. Oh, and I will now turn it over to Laura Barna, Parks Engineer, to discuss this project.
Thank you, Andrew. Hi, my name is Laura Barna. I am also an engineer and project manager for Montgomery Parks. And I'm here to talk about a few other projects in more detail. So the first one I want to talk about is Georgia Ave and Evans Parkway. And I have on the screen an existing condition, just aerial of the intersection. And the reason why this is interesting to the Parks Department is because we actually have two parks on either side of Georgia Ave, the Carol Knowles Park, as you can see on the left, on the west side, and the Evans Parkway Neighborhood Park on the east side. And in between, we have Georgia Ave, which is 3 lanes northbound, 3 lanes southbound. And this intersection has no signal, no crosswalk. There's no real way to get from one park to the other, which is why this is a Parks Department project. So with that in mind, access is super important to us, giving the community on the west side access to Evans Parkway and the community on the east side, access to to Carol Knowles, and knowing that there's a farmer's market in the Evans Parkway Neighborhood Park that is very popular. So we wanted to give the community a way of crossing the street. So next slide, thank you. So our project includes adding a new hawk signalized pedestrian crossing. And for those who don't know, a hawk is a high intensity activated crosswalk signal. And what that means, it's a traffic control device that's pedestrian activated. So, and it goes from flashing yellow to solid red. And then on red, the cars are stopped in either direction and a walk signal is provided to pedestrians, cyclists, anyone on foot. So it gives them an opportunity to cross the road. So that's the main feature of this project, but we have also, we're also including the closure of the existing median, and you can see that part in green. And it's worth noting that currently northbound and southbound left turns are not permitted. They are restricted movement, so it does not change that traffic pattern at all. It is a permitted movement currently to be able to go from Evans Parkway across the street, but we've found that that is not a common movement. And we have vetted this concept with emergency services and also SHA and some of the community, and we've gotten a lot of support from all of those agencies about this project. We're also updating the curb radii and the ADA ramps as best as we can to try to slow down some of the turning movements to make it more inviting to cross the street and be able to use this new hawk signal and access both parks. Next slide, please. And so I have included a few pictures of the existing conditions here. So you can see this is Georgia Ave looking south. You can see Carol Knowles Park on the left and Evans Parkway on the right. And this is not an inviting place to, I mean, you can't cross right now. There's no crosswalk. There's no stop in the traffic. And you can also see the restricted left turns in the signs in this picture. Next slide. And here's just another view. This is standing on the corner of Carol Knowles Park looking east toward Evans Parkway. This is where we would be providing this new crosswalk and hawk signal and providing that access that does not exist currently. Next slide, please. So the next project I want to talk about is this Sligo Creek Parkway at University Boulevard. And this project is interesting, is important to us because Sligo Creek Parkway ends in a T intersection here at University Boulevard, but Sligo Creek Trail keeps going and it goes all the way. We have some, as Andrew talked about, we've got some planning for Sligo Creek Trail to connect to Wheaton Regional in a more robust way. And so we really want to prioritize that trail experience feels safe, feels comfortable for all the users, the vulnerable users using it. So in the existing condition, we have a 90-foot crosswalk without any pedestrian refuge. The trail on the east side of Sligo Parkway. You can't really even see it in this picture. There's some tree coverage, but it's away from the road, but as it goes toward the intersection, it actually bends into the road shoulder and then curves around on a minimum width sidewalk and bends around and then goes across the street on that crosswalk. Currently, there's no protection for trail users in that corner. So they are horizontally and vertically on level with the roadway and the travel lanes. The traffic signal pole, and there's various utilities immediately behind the sidewalks, which really limits us in our ability to provide that sort of protection or the queuing space. Right now, there's no queuing space. Like I said, it's about 4 feet. It's a minimum width sidewalk that all trail users, north and southbound trail users, are navigating. And it's not really large enough to have trail users go side by side or have them cross each other going in different directions. And really what we're aiming to provide is a trail use that is comfortable and able to be used by all ages and abilities. So I'm gonna go through some of these reasons why we have prioritized this particular corner. So this is an image of University Boulevard looking south towards Sligo Creek Parkway. And the corner that I was just speaking of is directly in front. You can't really see the trail in this photo either. The minivan that is making a right-hand turn is sort of blocking where it is. But it goes along the road shoulder and then onto that sidewalk and crosses the street. Here's the same view, University Boulevard looking south towards Sligo Creek Parkway without any vehicles or pedestrians or cyclists. And you can see the trail approach in the roadway shoulder right against the travel lane. You can also see where it goes onto the ADA curb ramp and then around to the crosswalk. Next slide, please. So these existing utilities create a real pinch point. So they're very close to the edge of the sidewalk. There's a lot of them. There's actually another utility that's sort of off screen that's kind of right where the, yeah, exactly right where they're pointing. So moving these utilities, especially that traffic pole, is kind of a non-starter for these projects and not a good use of public funds. So that's really limiting for our design and to get people to cross the street in a comfortable, safe way. Next slide. So this is another picture of the same corner, and this really just showcases the lack of horizontal or vertical separation between trail users and motor vehicles. And so when we think of trail users, it's not just cyclists, it's pedestrians, it's joggers, it's parents with strollers, it's parents with a wagon, it's little kids with a balance bike, it's elderly people, people with disabilities. It's really all the vulnerable people in our population who want to get out and be able to use this facility. So the lack of horizontal or vertical separation really makes it uncomfortable to be in that space. Here's another view of where the trail meets the road shoulder. And you can actually see a trail user desire line to the left. That's sort of like a dirt path. It goes, so you can see that people aren't comfortable with where the trail meets the road and where we're telling them to cross and the facilities that we're providing. They're uncomfortable with that and they're tending to use a different path. Next slide, please. This is looking north. This is Sligo Creek Parkway looking north. Again, you can see that same desire line of people moving themselves away from the traffic and still trying to access that crosswalk. You can also see the gate that we closed for the open parkways. And interestingly enough, the desire path actually does not even function when the gates are open or the traffic is flowing. So exactly when the users would want to be away from the cars, then they can't because the gate is there. And just to give another view, this is University Boulevard looking west, and this is where we are proposing to add an additional crosswalk.
Yeah, I'll just add that kind of right here in the picture, we've got another leg of Sligo. So adding this crosswalk on the west leg allows those users to kind of come up and cross the intersection once instead of having to cross Sligo and then cross University.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. So we came up with our first concept that we came up with, which was presented in the May 2024 public meeting, was trying to improve this intersection as best we can given our the existing conditions. So we proposed a new crosswalk on the west leg. We proposed some median refuge islands. We widened the one island on the north leg slightly just to give a little bit more space. We removed some excess pavement, which, as Andrew highlighted, is good for traffic calming, but it's also really beneficial to a stream valley park in removing the excess pavement that we don't need. We try to reduce the curb radii as best we can to just slow those turning speeds and give people more of a chance to be able to cross the road, and give the motor vehicles, when they're slowing down, they can stop. If there's a conflict, they can also, as Kyle showed, the cone of vision, they've got more vision for vulnerable users, people in the crosswalk. We're proposing to upgrade the accessible curb ramps, and we're also going to improve the parkway gates and put them in a more appropriate place. So we have this concept and we present it to the public, and but the problem with this concept is that it still doesn't really fix the issues of space, comfort, and queuing on the corner. So in this concept, we do have, can you go back one?
Sorry.
In this concept, we still have no horizontal setback from the travel lanes. We have a slight vertical. We're able to get a small curb reveal right in the middle of the curb return, but it's really minimal, and you're still right horizontally, just right off the travel lanes. So it improves the intersection and the trail crossing, but not in a robust way, and it doesn't address what we believe are some of the major issues with that corner of the crossing. So we decided, next slide, please. So we decided to see what can we do so that we can actually have the crossing and the corner that we would like, that provides a protected landing area, and provides a queuing space for trail users, and get that buffered separation between the parkway, travel lanes, and the trail users. And so in order to do that, space doesn't just come from thin air. So we proposed to remove the 86-foot right turn lane and see if that would give us the ability to have that separation, not move those major utilities, and still get what we wanted for our trail crossing. And when we make these choices, we've done a lot of field visit, we've done a lot of observation. We think that it could be reasonable, but of course we always want to have data to make sure that this is something that we're comfortable with. So we did traffic counts, we did traffic modeling, and what we had found is that the traffic queues, the effect on the weights would be nominal. So we're not seeing a ton of traffic. We have a higher PM peak hourly rate, but really the queuing and the time to cross would be seconds of added delay. And we do have a little bit more information that we're going to talk through about the traffic counts, and we also have our consultants online available for specific questions about that. But this is our preferred trail crossing, and so this is something that we want to explore in a more robust way. Next slide.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Kyle.
No, no, I was just gonna say, and I can dive into some of the comments we've heard about this, unless there's anything else you want to say about this design here.
No.
So we've received a lot of public comments so far. You know, a lot just generally about all the projects, a lot expressing support for a lot of the projects. But as far as Sligo and University, this one seems to be the most controversial so far. We've received about dozens of comments in the last 24 hours, and I'm going to do my best to kind of summarize some of the comments that we've heard. So the main thing is the opposition to eliminating the right turn lane. Some of the arguments are that it'll increase traffic congestion, it'll increase travel time, it'll lead to slower vehicular travel speeds, that the intersection is already congested, that it'll impact thousands, it'll be less safe for drivers, the congestion on the parkway will lead to increased idling and pollution. That'll create backups for cyclists, and that not everyone can bike. So really, you need to balance everything out. We heard a couple comments about how the right turn lane should be maintained and a no turn on red should be added as an alternative. We heard that no problem exists and no data supports the needs, and that from some people that it's the unsafe behavior of bicyclists and pedestrians that is the issue here. And I've got a quote here from somebody that commented, and I think this really summarizes a lot of the sentiment that I've read over the last 24 hours. And the quote is, "It seems to me that the proposal would impose a greater burden on vehicular traffic than is necessary." And so, just a reminder that this is a trail safety improvement project. That's the funding source that we have. This is a parkway which aims to increase recreational access, both in cars and via our trails. And so, I certainly understand where people are coming from, but we've got some data we want to share to kind of address some of these comments that we've heard. But first, I just want to show, so right here is University. And again, we received about 100 comments or so in the last 24 hours, and most people provided their addresses. And so I took the opportunity to map where those are coming from, and almost all the comments, I think about 90% of the comments we've received are from within the Kent Mill Civic Association boundaries. That's very understandable. If you could imagine who is heading northbound on Sligo and needing to make a right turn, it's very obvious that if you were heading northbound and wanting to get to Kent Mill, you would want to make the right and then a left onto into Arcola into the Kent Mill neighborhood. So just wanted to show that as some background. But want to get into some of the intersection turn movement. So we did some traffic counts, which found, this chart's a little confusing here, but so all three of these numbers show the total westbound Sligo Creek or University traffic, all the eastbound, and then right here we're showing all the northbound. So this was collected on a Thursday, and we see a little under 1,200 vehicles a day, with almost 700 turning right and almost 500 turning left. We also took some opportunities to go out and observe traffic during the PM hours, during the PM peak hour. We found that about 75% of traffic was clearing the intersection on green, either through a left or a right. Found about 8% were turning right on the green arrow, and another 17% were turning right on red. One thing we did notice is that 60% of the right turning vehicles that were turning right on red did not stop. University, as I'm sure everybody on this call is aware, is a very busy road. In order to get the sight line to see where traffic is coming, you have to kind of pull out almost to the edge of the intersection into the crosswalk. It's a very uncomfortable turning maneuver. You're looking left while getting ready to go right. And that's one of the things that concerns us a little bit here, is that right turn, just because of how many people are turning on red. But really, I think the most important thing to notice here is 75% of the intersection is clearing on green. So we did some traffic modeling based on those counts. So I've got, and I'll highlight this here. So in the AM peak hour, we're seeing about 73 northbound vehicles. So that's a little more than a vehicle a minute. The existing delay to get through the intersection with both lanes, it's about 28 seconds. And with the removal of the right turn lane, that's going up almost 8 seconds to 35 seconds. So keep in mind this delay, is how long it's going to take you to get through the intersection. The red light phase on northbound Sligo is about 80 seconds, and the green phase is about 35 seconds. So again, we've got about 75% of people are clearing this intersection within those 35 seconds. In the PM hour, this is definitely a little busier. We see 189 vehicles in that PM hour, and the existing delay is a little worse in the morning. It's about 31 seconds. And with this proposal, we're increasing that about 10.7 seconds. So, we've heard comments about, thousands of vehicles going through this intersection a day, and that this is going to add, so much time to people's commutes. We've covered some of the safety benefits, but hopefully, this data right here kind of gives you a sense of what the trade-off is here. So it's 7.8 seconds in the morning and 10.7 seconds in the afternoon to make it through an intersection that balances the safety and needs of both vehicles as well as trail users crossing. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Laura to talk about Sligo Creek and Godwin Drive.
Thanks, Kyle. So the next project I'm going to talk about is Sligo Creek Parkway and the Godwin Drive connector. This is a project that improves sidewalk and trail connection. It renovates an existing trail and provides a new raised crossing at a mid-block crossing of Sligo Creek Parkway, and it includes some impervious surface removal. Next slide, please. So this is the existing mid-block crossing at Sligo Creek. The location is not going to change dramatically. We are going to propose a raised crossing, and the purpose of a raised crossing is to increase visibility and also to slow down drivers, just to really call more attention to the fact that this isn't at an intersection and that there's going to be users crossing it. Next slide, please. And so this is the beginning of the project. This is a residential neighborhood, and the Godwin crosses Tenbrook and then ends in what we call a stub road. We're looking east, and we're on the trail looking east here. So this project would include pavement removal from the stub road. We've talked to MCDOT about that. They are comfortable with it. And we're going to create more of a vibrant park entrance. We're going to improve this trail. And we're going to just, this is a connection to the main line of Sligo and just providing a better access for this community in this neighborhood.
With that, we've talked about our current slate of Safe Streets and Roads for All projects, but wanted to talk a little bit about some of the future projects. So we are planning a trail connection from Delancey Drive to the Matthew Henson Trail. Currently, there is no access to the Matthew Henson Trail between Viers and Connecticut from south of the trail. So we're looking to improve connectivity there. We're looking at doing a neighborhood greenway along Wyndham Lane, which would include a wider path. We're also looking to add a shared use path on Kemp Mill from Randolph Road south to the maintenance entrance for Wheaton Regional. And then a couple other projects along Sligo Creek Trail. So a raised crossing at Dennis Ave, as well as intersection improvements at Piney Branch and Sligo, Flower Ave and Sligo, and near Heather Ave. I've listed the contact information for Laura, Andrew, and myself here. We will hopefully be able to answer all the questions that you all have today, but you can certainly send us an email. We also have our, I'll just highlight this, our website for the projects right here. And if you haven't already submitted some comments, you can take a look at our form here. If you've already submitted comments and you've maybe learned some more tonight or have more questions, please feel free to add those as well. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started with questions. I know we have a lot of questions in our Q&A, so I imagine we're going to take a few online as well as a few from people. So if you want to raise your hand, if you have a question or comment, again, we'll try to keep these to about a minute, just so we can make sure everybody gets a chance. And once we've gone through everybody, we'll allow people to ask additional questions. All right, let's see. So Karen, or I guess Michelle, you might need to have people unmute themselves. I'm not getting the option.
Hello. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just wanted to first start off about transparency, actually all the way back in the first slide where you talk about speeding and the percentage of death or fatalities that could happen, 40 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour. But I noticed that it just, in terms of transparency, in the University Boulevard corridor plan, I actually have a photo, but it won't let me turn my camera on. It says vehicle traveling at 23 miles an hour, 10% risk of death, 32 miles an hour, 25% risk of death, 42 miles an hour, 50% risk of death. And this is from the Federal Highway Administration. And this is in the University Boulevard corridor plan, which is the Federal Highway Administration is the highest level of Department of Transportation in the United States. So I definitely would like to see data on actual speed number versus fatalities, because speed's definitely important. Another thing, just quickly, on Arcola Avenue at, I believe, Orabao, where you'll be moving the median up. If people that were making a left turn, which would previously be able to make a left turn from Arcola Avenue onto Orabao, that clearly wouldn't be able to happen. As we know, Arcola has over 15,000 vehicles in a given day. So that would definitely lead to immense backups, because those cars, which there's not a lot of them, but if there were to be, usually they'd be able to pull out on the side there so through traffic could go. And, that's going to be really hard, just something to think about. And most importantly at Sligo, I actually, in relation, which I want to get to Arcola, but I feel like Sligo is definitely the, theme of the night here. In comment of the University Boulevard corridor plan and the recommendations, MCDOT stated, while removing a turn lane can lower crossing distances, it increases cycle times to clear the same turn volume for a single lane. With longer signal times, pedestrian and bike compliance is lowers and can be a higher risk than crossing an additional lane. And then you also just mentioned looking to the left while, making a right turn on red, which is a very important thing. I don't think it's that much of an issue at this intersection, although there needs to be improvements at this intersection, because people crossing University Boulevard cannot legally cross when Sligo would be making a right turn on red, because University Boulevard, which is 6 lanes or now 4 lanes, has a green light, and people aren't crossing 6 lanes of traffic. That they cross, Sligo Creek Trail crosses with Sligo Creek Parkway. So unless we're thinking about a no turn on green or a dedicated pedestrian phase, which is what other people talked about, there's one at Arcola and Lamberton, that could be a potential solution. But, just in terms of delays, I've met with you guys, and you have all my work, but I do not think it would just be 10 seconds, because the left turn.
So let's keep it to about a minute, Noam. Thanks for the comments. I think one thing I want to highlight here is this is a good photo for this. It's not the right turn itself that's inherently dangerous here. What's inherently dangerous is the lack of protection that this user has. If this user is making a right, you're absolutely correct on a red light on northbound Sligo. This user should not be crossing. But if this user, this driver in the red here, is looking left and turning right, and they cut this corner too close, there's currently nothing to prevent this guy from being struck by a vehicle. That's what we're looking to improve here. So we can talk a lot about, the speeds on University or the history of crashes on University. But we can look at this without any of those details and know that there is no protection for users waiting to cross northbound here. You are either on a shoulder or on a sidewalk that's the same level as the road. So that's what we're looking to fix here. That's the safety challenge here. But it sounded like you have a little more to say. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we'll make sure everybody gets a chance to talk, and then there should be time for you at the end to bring some more stuff back. So thanks, Noam.
So Kyle, we got quite a few obviously questions in the question and answer section. We are answering some of those in typing, so but I can ask a few of these. So and a lot of them are about Sligo Parkway and University, which I believe were asked before we got to the part of the presentation. So
Yeah.
And I'm sure we're going to get those similar questions, but there is a comment I'd like y'all to talk about a little bit, and it's most of the significant barriers to parks and trails are SHA highways. And they were asking how does parks have an ability to improve pedestrian safeties on SHA roadways? So I don't know if we went into that completely. I know we have plenty of projects on there, but
I think that's a good question. And really, you know, the theme of some of these projects working on the larger kind of county and state highway roads probably comes through. But, you know, we were lucky to win this grant and to get this $7.5 million, which essentially gives us a little bit of a carrot to get the State Highway Administration and County DOT out to talk about some projects that we maybe wouldn't traditionally be able to fund. So, you know, we're building better partnerships with State Highway Administration. I know most of these projects they fully agree with from a safety standpoint, and you know, hopefully as we continue to work on improving our trail crossings, there's more opportunities for us to work with them.
all right, I think we can go to another raised hand. And I'm trying to open up the sheet here. All right. It looks like Jules can unmute herself.
Can you hear me?
Or herself, sorry. Yes.
All right, awesome. Kyle, I do appreciate your time. When we met in person at this intersection, we obviously discussed our respective views on this issue, but you did tell me something that was encouraging at the time, which is that you were considering a proposal that would not remove the right turn lane from the intersection. Is that still under consideration? And if so, why was that not mentioned more clearly in this meeting?
Yeah, so you know, as Laura kind of highlighted, we started with this design right here, which we liked some of what it did. It added the crossing on the west leg. It widens the median and adds a little more protection for pedestrians crossing here. It does realign the curb radii a little bit more, but we still have the same problem that Laura highlighted, which is we don't have any sort of protection. You know, I think we're able to lift the curb from here to here up a little bit, because we do have to keep in mind the pedestrian curb ramps to go across on both sides. And so, you know, I don't believe I said that we were considering two designs. I said we would show both designs so that we can highlight the design changes between those and how we led to our final design here, which does in this green, this is a raised curb. So this is protection. You know, in the scenario I was talking about earlier with somebody trying to cut this corner close, they would one, hit grass, and two, hit this curb before somebody's struck while they're standing right here. So, you know, we started with this concept, which maintained both northbound lanes, and moved towards this concept, which we feel like from a trail user comfort, from a trail safety, and from a kind of a low stress perspective, really works. And we found that, you know, after looking at the data again, you know, I know that this intersection does get busy in the evenings. I use this intersection 4 times a day when I go to pick my kids up from daycare. I live just about a mile south of here. So I know this intersection very, very well. I don't turn right here as much as you do, Jules, and a lot of your neighbors, I'm sure, do. But this intersection does not carry thousands and thousands of people. It currently operates at an acceptable level of service, a near free flow condition. And again, going from one concept to the other, we looked at the data and looked at the impacts. And we've balanced those to come up with a solution that, again, based on our analysis, is only going to add between 8 and 11 seconds. The intersection is not in a scenario where if you're turning right, you pull up to the intersection and you immediately proceed through. There's always going to be almost some sort of delay at this intersection, especially with how busy it is. You will watch, and there are people who are waiting to turn right here. And if you wait long enough, you'll see people will get honked at for not turning right quick enough. So, our goal here is not to make driving miserable. Our goal is to make the trail crossing safer for bikes and pedestrians, and the impact of doing that to the greatest extent is pretty minimal based on what we've seen.
All right, thank you, Kyle. So a theme of questions from the chat is in regards to Orball. I'd like to give some of the other sites a chance here. There was a question on whether we had considered a hawk symbol or signal or a light for that crossing.
Sure, I can talk about that a little bit. We did a study at the intersection of Arcola and Orbaugh. We took traffic counts during one of the major tournaments in the fall. I believe it was the only boys and girls baseball tournament there. So it was the busiest event at Wheaton Regional Park in the fall. And we found, even with that peak event, even with those peak volumes that we had at that intersection, it didn't qualify for either a four-way stop condition, and it didn't qualify for a traffic signal control based on Montgomery County Department of Transportation's study warrants. This is, as we mentioned previously, Arcola Avenue's DOT right-of-way, and ultimately the respective agency is going to approve these designs, whether that be SHA or DOT. In this case, we didn't quite have the traffic conditions that warranted any sort of traffic signal, but we do believe that with the median refuges, with the narrowing of the road, narrowing of the drive lanes, and the other intersection improvements, it can still be made a very safe crossing and a better condition than it is now.
All right, thank you, Andrew. So we can go back to the hands up. It looks like Kathy Michaels or possibly Jerry Kickerson. I believe you'll be asked to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you very much for all this information. Since it's nobody else has brought it up, but I wanted to understand a little more about the trail behind Colt Terrace that is then set to cross Arcola, and there's like a little stub on the other side of a trail on the other side of Arcola that's been there forever with a chain across it, and it doesn't go anywhere. And you'd have to put a crossing there if you put a trail there. So anyway, I was wanting to know a little bit more about that, where that stub was going to go on the other side of Arcola and why, because it would be a major disruption, put yet another trail through Sligo Creek Park there.
Thanks for your question, Kathy. It is a very beautiful, there's some very large trees in that section, but allow me for a second to kind of give a little bit of the idea. So Sligo currently ends right about here. We are looking to extend it up here across Arcola and then tie it into the existing Wheaton Regional paved trail network. We separately have a project to pave the existing maintenance road out to Kemp Mill, and then a later project as part of Safe Streets and Roads for All that will install a shared use path all the way up Kemp Mill to Randolph Road. So the goal long term is that, from any point on Sligo, you would be able to then continuously on a paved trail make it all the way to Kemp Mill and Randolph Road, which then gets you close to some of the Poplar Run trails and other points north. Those trees, like I said, they're pretty big, but they're also pretty spaced out. So we've walked it with our arborist and a group of people. I'm not saying there will be no impact, but I think there's enough space that we can wind something through in an environmentally sensitive way to kind of improve connectivity north to Wheaton Regional and on to Kemp Mill and Randolph.
All right, Kyle, there's a theme of questions that I'm going to try to group together here. Well, first, there's some positive of the open parkways through Sligo. There's some negative, some complaints about Friday being closed. But I'd like to also tie that into these questions about considering separated buffered bike lanes and separating bikes and pedestrians. And I think if you could holistically talk about that some, I think that would benefit.
Yeah, so is that kind of talking about buffered bike lanes and bike lanes along kind of the parkways themselves? Is that the
along parkways? Some are questioning, separation of sidewalk from along University, providing a grass strip.
Yeah.
Just kind of the tools in the toolbox and the considerations that go into that, I think would help.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally, the goal is to provide and the complete streets design guide and the bicycle master plan and facility toolkit kind of talk about these a lot, but you want to provide either some sort of horizontal separation, whether that's a grass buffer or a wide median or some sort of vertical separation through flex posts or a curb or something like that. So, we're looking to try to improve, the opportunities for safe and comfortable and low stress bike facilities that get people to our parks, get people around our parks, and get people through our parks safely. So we're looking to support doing those types of things where we can, and thankfully we got some grant funding to implement some of these projects.
Sorry, I'm searching for questions. You answered that quicker than I was ready for. There's a lot of talk about the kind of the wear path around gates along Sligo, I guess at that University intersection as well.
Yeah, that's a good clarifying thing. I think Laura's point is good. But yeah, that when the parkway is open to vehicles, the gates closed, this path isn't being used. When the parkway is open to pedestrians, the gates close, and so people go around here. I think the point Laura was trying to make, and I think is relevant, is when there are vehicles in this lane, you don't have the option to have a buffer between the roadway. You're stuck in this shoulder situation or in this low curb. So yeah, I saw some of those comments. I think that's the right read on it. But Laura's point that getting space away from the road when you need it isn't currently available.
All right, thank you, Kyle. It looks like we can go back to the hands being raised. It looks like I believe Vita will be asked to unmute.
Hi.
You're Vita's son.
I'm Vita's son. I'd like to know why the first Sligo Creek proposal was not accepted. Not this, yeah, this one, where
Okay.
This is
the original plan, which would raise the sidewalk above where it is right now, and keep the trail also raised above the roadway. And I just wanted to know why this was removed.
Is this Mosh, by the way?
Yes,
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
pretty well, Kyle.
So yeah, I'll try to explain that. It's a little hard to see from this view, but let me go into. You can see a little bit right here. So you see these curb ramps. You've got the tactile or detectable warning strips. So this is an accessibility thing that helps those users with low vision or other disabilities to know that this is the entrance into a roadway. And so if you could imagine that I think I can actually draw here maybe, but if we were to raise this up, we would then have to drop it back down. Sorry. Drawing on the fly is not really working so well, but you would have to then drop it back down to meet this curb ramp, to then come back up, to then drop it back down. And so it really only gives us the opportunity of raising the curb a little bit higher right here, but then we still have to drop down. So I know that's not the best drawing skills right there, but essentially the key point here is that when we're looking at, sorry for jumping around here, but we're really just not able to lift this up to provide the same sort of protection that we are with this, or with the removal of that travel lane. So it really, there are some safety benefits from this. This would be a safer intersection than is currently there, but it still doesn't solve the major issues with this corner right here. So I hope that's a good explanation. I'm happy to provide additional comments, but really it just boils down to we're not able to provide a buffer or separate a buffer or add protection for this corner, the main stem of the trail going across, with keeping this travel lane.
Kyle, this is Vita. I also have a question. Can you go back to that previous picture, the actual picture of the road? One more. Yeah. So why you guys see that there's a trail that people have made. So why don't you just widen that? Why don't you just start the asphalt there all the way to the sidewalk?
So as you can see, I'll try to highlight this, but we've got.
I understand, but if you move the yellow gate, you could make a wide path right there. I just feel like when we were students at the University of Maryland, one of the things they told us was on McKeldin Mall, which is the main area of the school, the paths that they made between the buildings were they just watched where kids walked, and that's where they made the path. So this is where bikers are going. So why don't you just make the path where the bikers are already going?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we covered a second ago, this path is only being used when the gate is closed, because you can't use the trail as it is right now. But if you look between it, I mean, this path is maybe a foot wide. You're right against this utility box right here. You've maybe got 1 or 2 feet to the right side of that. Sorry, I don't have this, but so this is maybe a foot wide. You've maybe got 2 feet here, and then you're right on this utility. So there's not sufficient space to carry an 8-foot path through this intersection, and to create, the landing and the space needed for it.
All right. It looks like Allison, you will be asked to unmute.
Hi, thanks for having the presentation. I also am concerned about this intersection. I drive on it multiple times a day, and I go through it very early in the morning, including yesterday at 5:30 in the morning, when it's pitch black. There's no lights on Sligo Creek Parkway, and there was a runner running on the pavement, as in the roadway pavement, in all black, no reflectors. And I almost hit this runner because the runner's literally running in the roadway. And it's dangerous. And I think a big thing is that the pedestrians want to be against the roadway and not be on a separate dedicated trail that's separated from the roadway. This happens on a daily basis on Sligo at all times of day. This is both bicyclists and pedestrians, and it's very dangerous oftentimes for both because there is no median at all on Sligo, or the median is maybe like a foot or two wide at most on either side of the roadway. Also I've never seen anyone drive onto the sidewalk. So I'm not exactly sure why we're talking about hitting people on a sidewalk. It seems kind of ridiculous, especially when there's already a protection from a bus lane that nobody really wants, but there is a bus lane to already provide protection where you seem to be concerned about a tight right turn that you're not legally allowed to even take. I think a big issue is the gates now. Another big issue safety-wise is that for some reason, even during when Sligo Creek is closed from Friday to Sunday, the left turn signal from University Boulevard westbound is still going. So people aren't told to not go in the left lane. There's no signalized turn to say don't go in the left lane and don't try to turn. That also there's no signalized turn like on Monday when Sligo Creek Parkway was closed in the morning. At 5:30 in the morning, it was closed because some tree came down in the storm. There was no signalized crossing. There was no signalized left turn saying don't try to turn here. The gates are closed, right? So there's a serious danger for cars and pedestrians with that because then and cars in the other direction because cars get confused, and that I think is a big harbinger of accidents. And the other thing that pedestrians really hate in this intersection and bicyclists and drivers and everybody is that there's no more crosswalk crossing sign indicator when you're crossing Sligo Creek Parkway, right? So if there was a walk signal, I think everyone would be much happier at this intersection, crossing Sligo Creek Parkway. There was, for a time, a long time ago, it was taken away, and then it was brought back for a few months, and then it was taken away again. I don't quite understand why that happened, but there used to be a signal, and then there wasn't. And I think that more than anything else, people would want that. And if you're really concerned on that right side of the roadway with the utility boxes, move the trail crossing to the left side. Because right now, there's really the Sligo Creek specifically crosses, the trail crosses Sligo Creek Parkway in order to take the intersection at the side of the intersection it's on, because that's where the trail picks up across University. But if you just wanted people to walk on the sidewalk for 100 feet or so, instead, you could make a wider side on the left-hand side of the street where there isn't utilities right now.
So let me just make sure I understand what you're saying, right? So a few things. One, we've heard the comment about the left turns here. I believe we are looking to improve the signage as part of this project. I believe we're also adding pedestrian signals as well. As far as that left turn, it doesn't get much use, but it is still helpful for people making U-turns, just because that's kind of a sketchy area for U-turns. But could you explain what you were saying about using I think you were saying only have the west crossing here? I don't know if she got muted, but I think she was saying.
So there's a lot of space on the south side of the intersection there where
Yes.
you could make a separated, you could continue the trail on that side. The trail right now, you have to cross Sligo Creek Parkway but well before the intersection with the university to stay on the trail. So if you kept the trail on the south side of the parkway, and then you crossed with your proposed additional crosswalk across University, because there's no crosswalk there now. But if you just had a crosswalk there and say you don't have a crosswalk on the north side where the crosswalk currently is, and then you just required people to walk on the sidewalk that about 100 feet for the trail to keep up, I think that you would, one, be able to maintain the right turn. You maintain the safety you claim the pedestrians don't currently have on the sidewalk, which, by the way, I disagree with that assessment. And three, you can still create a barrier. I would argue that the barrier has to 100% be an easy sight distance of the street, or else pedestrians and bicyclists will not use it. They will just walk in the street instead, because there is no pedestrian or cyclist who likes having that very large separation and the inability to be seen from the road, especially in less busy hours. And so Sligo Creek, I think for the vast majority of people, the trail itself, people feel is very unsafe. And that is why you have issues on Sligo Creek Parkway itself with someone, like I said, yesterday morning at 5:30 in the morning, running an all black, no reflectors in the roadway.
Yeah. All right. Well,
so that's that. I think that would preserve what you're looking for everybody, except maybe you have pedestrians on a 100-foot chunk of the sidewalk on University Boulevard.
Okay, thank you for your comment. We've got about 15 minutes left here. I know there's a bunch in the Q&A still, but if we've got anybody else with their hand raised, I'm happy to answer those.
Yeah, so next would be Tim Erst.
Hi, thank you for having this meeting. This is fascinating. You guys do great work. We're lucky to have you in the planning department. Could is Laura still on the call?
Yep.
Can Laura talk about the Georgia Avenue, Evans Parkway crossing, and not only how wonderful it'll be to join the two parks together, can you also talk about the bus stops that a lot of people use along Georgia Avenue, both north and south, at this intersection?
Sure. So I think there's so can you go, Kyle, can you go back to the plan view of either the proposed, existing or proposed? So there is a bus stop on either side of Evans Parkway and Evans Drive. The northbound bus stop is right there, which you're pointing. And the southbound bus stop is on the other side, near Carroll Knowles. I think the bus riders would greatly benefit from this hawk signal to be able to use either their bus to go north and then to come home south, or vice versa. I think that this would create a great benefit for transit users.
Thank you, Laura. Can I ask a very quick follow-up question?
Sure.
We are currently in Montgomery County trying to build more housing. We just completed a new housing development on Georgia Avenue near Forest Glen. Presumably, most of the folks who are living in this new housing are going to be taking buses. And so I think we all should probably start thinking about taking buses more than driving our cars. And I'm someone who drives a car, and I'm trying to take the bus more often because it's a lot less stressful. So if I can safely cross Georgia Avenue to get to the bus, I'm going to take the bus to get into downtown Silver Spring.
Great.
Good. Thanks for the comments, Tim.
All right, next hand up is I believe it's Karen or Kareen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much for hosting this forum. And I have a number of questions related to the intersection with Sligo and University, most of which I've put in the Q&A, but I'm happy to send those privately by email. But my main question relates to the Sligo Creek section that's closed on Fridays as a whole. So first of all the federal employees have just returned to office, which in my experience on my daily commute has increased area traffic tremendously, not just on Sligo, but really all over the place. And given that Friday is a work day for all of us, and is now an in-person work day for all of those federal employees who are blessed to have in the area, I'm wondering, first of all, what the rationale was behind closing Sligo on Fridays in the first place. I understand it on Saturdays and Sundays. It's wonderful for recreation and my children love it. But I do wonder about Fridays. And then specifically with this return to office for the federal government, if that timing study could be repeated, and if it might be time to reassess whether or not it's appropriate to close that area for 20% of the work week. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I can speak to this one a little bit. This section of Sligo Creek, the open parkway, has been Friday, Saturday, Sunday since its inception in April 2020. Especially during the summer months, you get nice Friday afternoons, and I actually live on one of the roads that's parallel to Sligo Creek Parkway. So I live on one of the overflow roads for when this is closed, and I know DOT has done studies, and the traffic increase on the road I live on is pretty minor. But generally speaking, I think it brings up a question of what's the purpose of our parkways. Are they, commuter thoroughfares? They certainly provide that benefit. Like I mentioned earlier, I use Sligo Creek Parkway a couple times a day driving to daycare. It's way more pleasant than driving up on Georgia, and that's part of the reason I use it. But generally speaking, just, even with return to work, traffic volumes on Fridays still typically are a little bit lower. And this section of Sligo really benefits from Dennis kind of bisecting it. So, for me, if I need to get through this intersection, I would likely just take Dennis up to University, and that would get me where I'm going in about the same time. So we're not currently looking at making any changes. The use that we see on the open parkway on Fridays, especially in this section, is very high, and so we're going to continue with that program for now. And obviously, we've had some comments about some of the signage, and we'll look to improve that. We need to replace some of our gates, but other than that, we're not looking currently to make any operational changes.
All right. It looks like Noam has another question. He has to unmute. But
Sure.
we have one more behind you, so
Yeah.
and we only have 5 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. I just wanted to, I've been writing a few things in the chat. I just wanted to talk about, just take really a step back and analyze the whole situation. I think the big theme of what we're seeing tonight is trust between the Parks Department and the Cat Mill community. And a big reason why you look at the map, I was looking at the address map, I actually thought there'd be way more engagement from other communities. But a big theme about Cat Mill is that we're in a position, and what we've seen with the University Boulevard Corridor Plan and the 2021 bike pilot is that promises were made that, like the yields at Arcola, where there would be no effect, and they were not kept because we saw backup to the Cat Mill Shopping Center, right? We saw delays like we've never seen before. And that's what's inevitably going to be happening with Sligo Creek. And I mentioned an 80-second delay because the light cycle is 80 seconds, right? If there's a left turning vehicle in front of you and you're making right, you're going to wait 80 seconds. And Dennis, although it could be a good alternative, that stretch of, if you need to get to Arcola Avenue, which again has over 15,000 vehicles, and Kent Mill Road, which has over 10,000 vehicles, which leads to Randolph and New Hampshire, people aren't going to take Dennis to go all the way out and then back in to get to Arcola. That just doesn't make sense. And another theme is Sligo Creek, where you're mentioning there's 1,000 vehicles. I find it very, very hard to believe the data. And I still want confirmation about my data regarding the Federal Highway Administration, where there's 40% difference in discrepancy of fatality rates. But you look at Sligo Creek, if I need to get to downtown Silver Spring, if I need to get to downtown DC, which is what we're seeing a lot with the federal workers returning back into office, every single navigation service, Waze, Apple Maps, Google Maps, is always going to tell me to use Sligo Creek Parkway, because another effect of what we're seeing on Georgia Avenue, especially with the bus lanes, which is a separate program, and I will not be mentioning more than that, is that you can't use Georgia Avenue to get to DC anymore. You want to get on the Capitol Beltway. I'm sure if you guys ever open the navigation service, what does it tell you? Sligo to Forest Glen to the Capitol Beltway. And especially with people going back into the office, people going to Northern Virginia, people, even if they live up county, taking Sligo Creek to get to where they need to go and coming back home and making that right turn. This is a very, very important thing. And there will be up to an 80-second delay, not 10 seconds.
Yeah. So thanks, Noam, for those comments. A few things I'll say. The driving distance from Forest Glen and Sligo through to University and into Kent Mill or Dennis University, it's about the same distance. It's 5 or 6 minutes either way. You can punch it into Google Maps and see. I understand that it might not feel like the same driving pattern, but it's a comparable distance. As I said earlier, our parkways are not inherently designed for commuting. They're designed for recreational access, and there's a benefit of commuting. And then the last thing, 80 seconds of red. That has an existing 30 to 40 second delay. It's not a current condition where you get to the intersection and you immediately get to turn. There might be 2-3 cars in front of you turning. It's very common that there are queues at the start of a light, and almost every light cycle I've seen at this intersection clears by the end of that 30-second green. So there's some great points. I appreciate you bringing some good comments here. I think we've got time for one, maybe two more questions. And I'm going to pull back up the, oops. Give me a second here. Pull back up our contact information so people can reach out to Andrew, Laura, or myself. And you can see the public comment form right here. Please feel free to click on that. Send us some comments. Like I said, we got over 100 in the last 24 hours, so I'm going to do my best to respond to everybody. But hopefully we've been able to provide some helpful information during this meeting tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. I think we have one more hand up. We'll kind of make that the last question. And just reiterating what Kyle said, we got over 100 comments and questions here tonight, and we did our best to answer as many as we could. And we'll be able to look at it and compare with this and release, some frequently asked question answers as we typically do. But Brian?
Sure. These are great points that Noah made. Thanks so much. Regarding the Orabout crossing, if you could just pull that up, that slide. I know there's a bus stop that's currently where the Orabout crossing is. So by moving that bus stop, maybe so when you move the crosswalk, will you also move the bus stop as well, so it's easily, so people can catch the bus going across Arcola easily, or are you gonna leave those bus riders stranded basically and without a crosswalk? They have to go back to the.
Definitely don't want to leave any bus riders stranded.
Because that happens all the time when you're crossing Arcola. You're running for that bus.
Yeah, no, we're looking to make things to improve accessibility and improve, how easy you can get around. So as these projects progress, we'll make sure that we're speaking with our friends at MCDOT and their transit services division to get input on if there's any changes or modifications we can make to improve bus service.
Yeah, Kyle covered a good good part of that there. In the Q&A, I saw a few questions related to bus stops. As these designs progress 100%, one of the things we're working on is coordination with WMATA for Metro Bus, as well as MCDOT for ride-on buses, to confirm that the bus stop locations are either adequate where they are, or if shifting is needed, we can shift it as part of our design as well.
Well, we are at time. I really want to just thank everybody for taking time out of your busy days to join us to learn a little bit more about these projects. I'm going to pull the contact information up here one more time. Again, please feel free to reach out to myself, Laura, or Andrew about this, or to provide some comments through the public comment form. We are looking forward to, we've got a lot of your emails who have already filled out the form, so we'll be sure to send you guys project updates as these projects continue forward. So thanks again, and hope to see you guys out on the trails. Thank you.